My name is Rannel Ngumuya, a visual artist born in Malawi, raised in Indiana, and now reside in LA. And this is in my own words. And growing up in America was definitely an experience for me. I knew art would be part of my life throughout all the inspirations I was surrounded by. With my dad being a musician, to also just being inspired by all the dopest cartoons, animes that I used to watch, whether it was Boondocks, Dragon Ball Z, and even collecting toys out of cereal boxes. Throughout school, taking all those inspirations, my style started to develop. Being in the household, my parents were like, yo, you gotta keep pursuing that education. I always knew I could do it without an education, but to make my parents proud, especially coming from Africa, and being one of the few kids that come from Malawi, set an example for even my younger brothers, being the oldest of 3. So I kept pursuing that education, but kept creating too. As time went on and progressed, I ended up getting into Columbia College in Chicago. Around that time, I was also part of a program called DACA, which allows young immigrants to stay here in America legally, but in a way still can't travel. As I started exploring in Chicago, I started working with a lot of artists, skipping class just to attend a lot of shows, and just connect and network. There's certain classes I used to fail just because I didn't create the way the teacher instructed me to, which for me wasn't fair and kept me in a box creatively. So in order to break out that box, I still kept going through with it, but taking advantage of my skill set and what I could offer to people outside of the classroom, people outside of my school. And that came to me tapping into connecting with artists and emailing a lot of managers and just people that I was trying to work with, whether it was brands or anything. And it brought me to this point where I was able to start creating mixtape covers. I took a lot of inspiration from things that they were going through, their stories, and recreating it in the way that I imagined it. When creating artwork like Tyler, the Creator, I used to think of albums I used to listen to of him. Flower Boy was something that was an album that inspired me the most. Those moments in the culture and in his career where he popped out with the leopard hair that people were so fascinated with. And I'm like, yo, what does it look like when you take all those moments and all those pieces of art that he made and just put it into one thing? Where I took the flowers just growing out of himself, the leopard hair incorporated, but also the vibrant energy he's able to bring within his artistry. And he's somebody that actually shows the freedom of expression. Doesn't do anything the way that people expect him to do it, but the way he wants to. And that's when I started finding my inspiration for all the figurines and sculptures that artists like Hebrew Brantley, Murakami, Cause, and all them used to create. That's the type of arena I wanted to be in. So now as the work started gaining more momentum, traction, it inspired me and just kept pushing me to even just say, yeah, f it, I'm gonna drop out. Move to Los Angeles and take this even further, to the moment where I could actually land projects that I was really pursuing. Ended up helping me land projects like making merch for one of the biggest tours, Assassination Vacation with Drake and Tory Lanez. Designing the logo for Cookies and Kicks, biggest shoe store on Melrose. To tapping back into making album artwork for Marshmello. And then that leading me to the art direction and landing on Times Square. All from just me being on a computer, which was the crazy part. And a lot of people would be like, yo, how? Like, how are you making this happen? Well, it was just networking, taking advantage of the internet. And then eventually I took everything that I made and told myself as a Malawian, I need to be the first one to have a gallery out in LA. And I did it. And that's when I had my first big gallery, solo gallery, And that's when I also felt like I was at my peak, but at the same time wasn't really at my peak because I felt like I was still in a box. A lot of people were coming to my artwork for, yeah, what I was creating, but not necessarily for the story of who I was, but everybody I was creating around, right? This is where I create my own brand, Bungalo Boy, which eventually would lead me to partnering with Dockers and Levi's to create my first collab shirt. But before getting to that point, I had to take it back to the root of what started me making even art. I tapped back into all the moments as a child that made me excited about art and just really helped me keep going, from thinking about the cartoons and just everything I was collecting as a kid and recreating those moments into what it is right now, which is Bungalo Boy. And this is when I created my first pieces of the series. And I knew in order to keep this series going, I needed to make a character. So that's when Nelius was born. He's a character that I created that's a creative extension of my imagination. And he is that attachment that I have with my art. And this is a piece that I created that expresses more of my personality, but takes everything in my personal life compiled into one. From my flag being where I'm from, Malawi, to the colors that express a vibrant energy that I always wanted to present throughout my personality and not just my art. And also just the texture that represents more of the culture, the style of Bungalo Boy and where I wanted to take it. I knew it was time to break out that comfort zone. The earth might have needed to stop in order for you to grow. Cherish these times alone and find your purpose in this world for when it continues again. Learn to apply all that you've learned into something greater. And by greater, I mean beyond the internet. And that's when I did that. I took everything I learned from the internet and before I started using the internet to push my art out and start learning how I could really make that tangible. How I really could introduce people into a new world of art that I was even exploring. If I was able to create this whole universe while nothing was going on, imagine what I can create when everything starts going again. So now, it brings us here to Bungalo Boy, but more specifically, the Bungalo verse. And boom, that's when I created this piece, the circle of credence. In order to keep that discipline, I had to get rid of all the distractions. And this is where I was also in the transition in my life to converting to Islam, where I found God through. And that helped me keep that discipline. Through all the moments I kept praying and keeping that faith and reminding myself of what my mom told me. Keep God in your heart. It's easy to get lost once you venture off into the world alone. But as soon as that moment hits where you find yourself, take that in. Those are the most vulnerable moments you have to push the most, but also speak your truth. And that's what I applied in Bungalo Boy. And when I made Circle of Credence, which is a piece of it, one of the most important pieces, it helped me discover the style of where I wanted to create Bungalo Boy and how I was trying to take it. So I recreated The Last Supper. Nelius at the table with everybody he started with, representing and being a symbol of people that inspired me, whether they were older or younger, and still in my life right now, was a very important piece because with this brand, eventually I want to open that door where I'm able to break out back to my home country and reunite with my family and just bring back the resources to the kids that need it the most. The kids not only in my country, but outside, in different countries, Philippines, India, China, wherever. I just want to impact the world through my art, but in a way where I'm innovating and educating on how to do it. As time went on, and as I started getting more confident in releasing everything that I wanted to into the world, I started gaining more traction, more coverage, not only for the art I was making and who I was making it of, but for how I was making it and almost a story that I was trying to tell, but people didn't understand yet. This is the type of shit that kept me motivated, that kept me going, along with the positive messages, along with the positive affirmation, the words that people were giving me. I'm doing this shit. I'm making it happen. I'm really living off of my craft. I had to keep going. It didn't stop. It was at a point, it was time for me to turn what I made into something tangible. The Thinking Man was one of my favorite sculptures. Something I saw young and recreated even in ceramics. It was a sculpture that spoke to me a lot because it's like just a naked man on a rock thinking. And I always wondered, I'm like, wow, this piece is special because it's more than just an art piece, but it's a moment. So it's all about thinking about the moments where I thought about all my best ideas and really brought it into fruition. So it came to this, Nelia sitting on a gold toilet and then making him into my own version of the Thinking Man. And this figurine is more than just a look, but represents all the moments where I was in my most vulnerable space, where I was thinking about all the ideas. And it's crazy because a lot of those ideas really did come from the toilet. So I said, F it, I'm gonna turn it into art. And taking it back to where I was born and the inspirations throughout my family that I've been surrounded by and friends, and just reimagining that into a brand that I created and into ways that people could really see and feel. So now it's my responsibility to inspire the world and eventually take it back to the root of where I came from. As artists, sometimes our biggest weakness is trying to build and master one medium. The only way to grow is by studying and working with different elements that make up the field you're in. So therefore, if you're a singer, learn an instrument. If you paint, learn to design, and take it further than design and learn to animate, and then turn it into something physical that people are able to touch, experience, feel, and just connect through, just like I'm doing with Bungalo Boy. Even though I'm part of DACA, and I'm thankful to be here in America to experience all these resources and opportunities that I've been able to obtain through my career, I still have a dream of bringing it back to the homeland and really developing more than just the art, but also the people and the environment that still needs help being developed. I want to innovate. I don't want to just recreate. I feel like innovation is a very important part for my career because as a creative, that's what I always aspired to do. But while innovating, I want to also educate and leave a blueprint behind for every other creative trying to create their own brand, but not confident enough to share their story or do so. If I could do it, you could do it too.